No, that won't happen either. There's lots going on. Let's get to it. First, let's start in Canada. We'll end in the United States, but we'll start in Canada. And here's Pierre Poilievre getting on board with and peddling this lie that Truth and Reconciliation has something to do with a genocide, that has something to do with proven allegations that people have trotted out and said, yes, this actually happened. Somebody said this is about more than, just these ground penetrating radar and whatever. It was the Truth and Reconciliation report that was tabled in, I think it was 2015. And then, but that report whitewashes and misunderstands and misrepresents a whole lot of facts, and it's not honest either. It's as honest as there are. We saw ground penetrating radar of bodies we can't find now that we've dug up everything. Right? So very interesting. It's not viable. It is not realistic, and I'm not willing to play the game because it's a game used to destroy the country, and that's the purpose of this. And I can't figure out, look at this pin. Oh my gosh, this pin is the most cringeworthy thing I just noticed. It is a pin of a shiny orange shirt. It's shiny, and it's a t-shirt, but it's like a shiny orange. It's not an orange shirt that you would have seen back then. It's shiny orange. Here's Pierre Poilievre talking about lies and Division Day. Here we go.
For years, the mistreatment of Indigenous people in Canada was ignored. The unacceptable and monstrous overreach.
Indigenous people have tax-free period, right? They don't pay GST or PST or anything like that if they're out in stores. There's a card that you can remove it at the checkout. Free education. There's a lot of money given from the federal government. I think it's in the billions to First Nations and to different chiefs. They have casinos. They have all sorts of different. It's like trans people saying we're downtrodden. There was a court that said, no, you're not. You've got everybody on your side. Absolutely. Matt Walsh was talking about this morning. It's beyond the scope of today's show, but he was talking about how the judge smacked down one of the defense's motions, saying that they were the underdog or they were hard done by. He said, you're absolutely not hard done by when media, all of the legal apparatuses, everybody is coming out in support of trans people, blah, 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 blah. You're not the underdog. So it's very interesting when Mr. Poilievre, again, gets in front of the camera. I'm sorry to be pausing this, but I just have to talk about it because holy smoke, really? We're 10 seconds in. And he's misrepresenting history in order to layer on the lies to bolster removal of Thanksgiving because Canada's so bad. And Thanksgiving isn't what we thought it was, so we have to get rid of that in order. But don't worry, you can still have turkey on Truth and Reconciliation Day. Lies and Division Day. Ridiculous. This is the goal. And Poilievre's on board. I'll let him carry on, but
of the Government of Canada in the creation and the long-standing running of residential schools leaves.
It was run by the Catholics until the 1960s, until John Chrétien and Pierre Elliott Trudeau took over. So, I'm not sure. Not mentioning it is basically the same as completely ignoring who was in charge of things. It wasn't the Canadian government, not until the 1960s. 1960s to the 90s, that was under the auspice of the Canadian government, specifically Canadians who are well known today. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, who's not around anymore, but John Chrétien, who is, right? So if there's a big problem, if there was some kind of criminal, if there's bodies buried, shouldn't John Chrétien be deposed? Shouldn't somebody talk to him? Did you know about the bodies? Where are the rest of the bodies, John Chrétien? Right? It just seems completely round the bend bonkers to, on one side, say there's this massive amounts of dead children. Canada as a country is responsible for a genocide. And we've got one of the government leaders who was quarterbacking it in the 1960s, who was a former prime minister, and nobody said boo to him. Did you know? Excuse me, but this whole thing's a farce. It's a disgrace to Canadians. It's disgraceful to pretend about all of this and to blame Canadians for something that is completely made up and to misrepresent history in a way that fits into this new garbage narrative. Carry on, Mr. Poilievre.
For First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. On the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, Canadians take time to reflect and work towards true healing. On a day dedicated to honoring residential school survivors and those who continue to be impacted by them, we acknowledge that every child matters. It is time to pursue common sense.
Just some children matter more than other children. So there you go. And if you want to hear about what's happening with your children in school, well, you better hope that your school board isn't taken over by the ideologically woke who want to cut parents out and mutilate children. We'll talk about that later in the show as well. True North is reporting a cash incentive available to British Columbia construction companies for hiring new workers doubles if a worker self-identifies as anything other than able-bodied heterosexual white male. So I think that I'd have everybody self-identify as some other race than white. I'd be like, are you Hispanic? You look real Hispanic to me. You look real Asian to me, right? Like, there we go. We're getting the money. You're getting the money. Do I self-identify as Asian? For work, I do. Are you Asian? Yes. Yes, I am. Right? Like, what does self-identifying mean? Is that a legal term? How does that work? I self-identify as 67. Retirement money, please. I self-identify as black. Reparations, please. How does this work exactly? I identify as a woman. I'd like to have toilet paper passed under the door, please. Like, what? It's happening. This does not make any sense whatsoever. I self-identify as a snake. I'm going to go hang out in the snake pit in the zoo, right? I'm self-identifying as a lion. Let's go hang out in the lion pit. It's ridiculous. How far does this go? Oh, well, let's not let them hurt themselves. Too late. But this is racism. This is institutionalized racism, back to the whole self-identify thing. I don't think it would hold up. If you said, well, I don't want to get caught committing fraud. You would only get the book thrown at you if they thought, well, see, in that case, you'd probably get the book thrown at you. They'd say, you're not really Asian. You don't really self-identify as Asian. I go to sushi all the time. It is not done, these kind of things, giving incentives for anybody who's not white, anybody who's not a heterosexual white male, if you're gay, if this white person is gay, we'll give them double the money. So now you've incentivized this person lying to you about their sexual history, because are you really going to come into the bedroom and make sure, right? Like I think there was an Adam Sandler movie about this in the early 2000s, right? And it was to get Jessica Biel, right? And then Adam Sandler falls in love with Jessica Biel and she likes him, but she's like, oh, it's so bad, so frustrating that you're gay, blah, blah, blah. I don't know why I remember this movie, but it was a joke. It's a joke now, except it's very illegal. And you couldn't do that. You couldn't say, if we're going to hire white people, you're going to get double, but everybody else who's not white, you get $2,500, right? Like $2,500 for non-whites, $5,000 for whites. Is that okay? Then why is this okay, right? And neither is okay, to be very clear. Here's Tucker Carlson, and this is 2 minutes, but he tells the story well of the Bolsheviks' destruction of Russia and during the Russian Revolution. And it's 2 minutes, but I think it's so worthwhile. He tells it better than I tell it. I could tell it in a minute, but it's worthwhile listening to 2 minutes. So sorry for the 30-second intro. Here we go.
The country's in complete chaos, and the Bolsheviks have decided that, it's discontent within the army that we need to inflame, and we need to get the army. I don't know if this sounds familiar to anyone here, but get the guns and the people who wield the guns. We need them. So the first thing they do is destroy all discipline in the Tsar's army, complete. So Peter Wrangel's just been on the front for 4 years. He comes back into St. Petersburg, totally civilized city, 2-hour drive from Helsinki. I mean, it is Europe, okay? Whatever anyone tells you. And he's wandering through, and soldiers are going crazy in the streets. And they're raping women. They're stealing at gunpoint. Soldiers in uniform, in a monarchy which had not had any behavior like this at all. And Peter Wrangel just can't even believe it. These are his soldiers. He's a general. And so he's completely freaked out, and he goes into a movie theater, and everyone in the movie theater is completely absorbed in the movie. Like there's no revolution happening outside. And Peter Wrangel thinks these people are insane. So he goes back, he's like, I gotta get to Moscow. So he takes the train to Moscow. I have to tell the Tsar, this country's falling apart. He's very close to the Romanovs, the family. You should read this. It's just out in English translation in the last 3 years. It's an unbelievable book, lost to history until recently, to English speakers. So he goes back to Moscow, and he's close to the Romanovs. And so he goes into the imperial court, and he knows all the relatives, and there are millions of them, hangers-on. And he notices about 80% of the women in the Romanov family are wearing red ribbons. in solidarity with the Bolsheviks, who wound up, of course we know how it ends, murdering them in the basement at dawn. So, wait, what? Peter Rengel says? How is it that this country is being devoured by a violent revolution, and the people who can afford movie tickets, that is kind of our middle class, are refusing even to acknowledge that it's happening, and the ruling class against whom it is aimed are sympathizing with it? And if this doesn't remind you of BLM, I don't know what does. I'm reading this in my porch, like midnight, I couldn't go to sleep. I was like, wait, I live in that country. That's happening now. This is a revolution. Its aim is to hurt you. Yes, that would include physically in the end. Sorry. If someone tells you you're not allowed to speak, if someone tells you your children are not your children, okay, these are not ideological differences. This is not, oh, I prefer, this capital gains rate. These are totalitarian measures that treat you as non-human.
Okay, just to bring it right back to what I'm talking about. A cash incentive available to British Columbia construction companies for hiring new workers doubles if the worker self-identifies as anything other than an able-bodied heterosexual white male. They are trying to do you harm. They are trying to normalize it. They are trying to make something that is blatantly racist, blatantly illegal, pass on by. And nobody's going to do anything about it. Because what are they going to do? Bring it to the courts? The courts are going to say BLM, right? They want to destroy because they're exactly the same regime as is responsible for the same historic wars that we've grown up trying to avoid. And up until now have been able to maybe not avoid, I guess, because all that's been happening is the U.S. has been waging wars on the United States' behalf without actually including the American people. And I mean U.S., NATO, coalitions of Western countries bombing Eastern countries, waging war, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they've been allowed to completely get away with it because the population is distracted, stupefied by shopping, stupefied by the internet, stupefied by Candy Crush. I was saying the other day to my brother, I think Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid would not be able to catch a fly with the chopsticks if he had Candy Crush. And my brother said he'd be able to do both, man. He would have a high score in Candy Crush and he'd be able to catch the fly at the same time. And I was like, ooh, yikes. Multi-talented Mr. Miyagi. But, right? It just seems like we are being, well, just like the Russians watching the movie, hypnotized by the movie. The general comes into the movie theater. Do you guys know what's going on outside? And they're like, shh, man, this is a good part, right? And he's like, oh my gosh, right? These people have lost their ever-loving minds. But those people supported whatever was going out on in the streets because they didn't see anything wrong with it and they didn't do anything to change it, right? And so the country fell apart. It's being weaponized against you right under your nose. And the middle class supports it. The people who work in the government support it. The people who work in the schools support it. Support it. Like, not just tacitly support it. Like, go out and protest you, cover your face, cover their faces so they're not identified so they don't lose their job or get upset parents calling them if they're teachers, and go out and scream at you as Antifa. Like, not just a little bit of support. These people support what is happening. They want to destroy the West, this country, our culture, the whole shebang. They want to take away Thanksgiving. They want to take away Christmas. Like, Christmas is now just a winter holiday with a winter tree, right? A holiday tree. You're welcome. Merry holidays, right? They're trying to destroy the culture on purpose, and it's happening in real time to the degree where you'll just wake up and your culture won't be your culture anymore, and they'll say it's actually kind of bigoted for you to say Merry Christmas. Sorry, right? Thanksgiving is a colonial adoption, and we don't do that anymore. Would you like some truth and reconciliation pie? It's orange. Right? Like, come on. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful